Pastor Ladi has spoken to us on the root cause, the underpinnings of all these problems, and that what we are seeing today, they are just the, what do you call it now, the symptoms or the branches. Outside there, do the people see it that way? Outside there, will they accept that, look, this is the work of Satan? Outside there, the people are hungry. They see what we are seeing here. I mean, according to that man there, that this thing is real. The man that is like we tend to joke with the matter. These people are prepared. And I think in my discussion with Pastor Larry, he said so. That yes, they are prepared. This is the thing that they've planned it. And you can see the manifestation. If anybody told me that Buhari will, at this time, come out with Ruga settlement, I will say, Lila, he will not do that. But you can see that it is real. The Fulanization thing is real. Having Fulani settlements in all the 36 states of the Federation, but for the fact that you and I rose, he wouldn't have shed this sin. Reverend, I want you to look at this matter. How does a Christian journalist that we are should explain this issue to my father, my illiterate mother, and the nonchalant Christian who thinks that the only way we can combat Fulanization, Islamization, all this sort of thing is by going on our knees? Is it by prayer alone? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, quickly, let us establish something. What you are dealing with has 4 stages. But let me first start with a question. If a man has HIV, I hope we all know how HIV manifests. It has a gestation period, sometimes up to 15 years. You can contact HIV by intercourse, sex, mixing blood, and things like that. And it can stay in your blood system, not yet activated, for up to 15 years. Okay? But once it kicks in, what HIV does is that it disables all your defenses. Now, after having caught HIV, you now catch pneumonia. They use all drugs. The pneumonia cannot be cured. And then the patient dies of pneumonia. Now, let me ask us a question. How does a doctor explain to the patient that is fixating on pneumonia as the cause of his death or the cause of his problem? How does a doctor explain that actually there is something else called HIV that has had a gestation period of up to 15 years in your blood, and that actually, whether it is pneumonia or any other sickness that came, what the HIV has done is to disable all your systems, so that even ordinary cold, when you catch an ordinary cold, you can use all the drugs, 10 years is still there. Now, I want to throw the question back. Maybe somebody can help me to answer this. The person who still fixates on pneumonia or on malaria or yellow fever, and the doctor who says, let's treat HIV, let's detect it as early as possible. Let us, having found the diagnosis, apply and, manage the HIV, cure it if possible, so that your body immune system can handle many of these other things. Please, is it easy to explain what HIV is when it first came out? Now, if you say forget HIV, in this case it was pneumonia, in that case it was Boko Haram, in that case it was Fulani herdsmen, next case is Almajiris, next case is Iswad, and then you are fixating on the secondary diseases. Please, as a medical doctor, are you doing justice to your patient? In 2012, go and read the Nikitobi report. Let me show you how some of these things that we're talking about. First of all, in 1940 something, 1954, so Mangin report came from the French colonial offices, came to the British colonials who are here then, warning them of a future possibility of this kind of thing that is happening in Nigeria right now. Why? Because they think a lot. They sit down, they strategize, they connect dots, they look at possibilities 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What if this happens? Okay? In 2012, the Nikitobi report, was it 2012 in Jos? Somebody quickly check online. Nikitobi report, the commissioner of police in Plateau State, I won't mention his name, was indicted by the Nikitobi report. Not only did he disable the police force, but when the strike started, people who called him, he would laugh and switch off his phone. Okay? Now, when the Nikitobi report came out, indicted him, said all these things, and so and so forth, Nikitobi recommended that he should be dismissed with ignominy. Was he dismissed with ignominy? He later ended up as what? As the Inspector General of Police. The same person who disabled Plateau State for terror attack later on became the Inspector General of Police of this country. When they were touting him as temporary Inspector General of Police, Khan lifted up his voice. I brought out all the reports, briefed my president and everything. A few whatever later on, there were people interceding. Some of the people shouting today are part of the people who made sure that they helped to confirm him as Inspector General of Police. But because he had a track record already, there were certain media people who were watching him that make the move you made in Plateau. Let's watch you make it now. So throughout his tenure, some people were on guard throughout, watching him, just make that mistake. Let's see. Now, what am I trying to point about here now? When I listen to what he has said, some of the things that he has listed out, some of the concerns that he has said, I commend him for effort. I commend him for sounding an alarm. But what I'm trying to point out to us is this, is that once your diagnosis is not right, if it's not accurate, you will end up increasing the fear, increasing the panic. You will not be able to treat what is on ground. Look, I've seen more bloodshed in this country than any other minister around us from the southern ends of the country. When the first Boko Haram fatwa list came out, I think I was the only southerner whose name was on their fatwa list. Everybody else who came from northern Nigeria, they wrote their offense. When it came to my name, this one blaspheming Allah, this one so when it came to my name, they just added my name to the list. They didn't quote any offense. Now, what am I trying to point out? When this thing started in northern Nigeria, and we were shouting in southern Nigeria, many people who heard, and we were telling them that this thing is not a local problem, it's a global problem. When it finishes there, is after Plateau, it's going to move to Benue. After Benue, it's going to be operating in Kogi. After this, everything we shouted out as an advance notice, many of the people who are shouting today, making noise, fire brigade, fire brigade, fire brigade, what was their response? Now, we are here again, saying to you that even the reports that you are quoting, let me tell you one of the first things I said. I don't know who those Yoruba group is saying are, and I can't remember the report. Yoruba Ronu, I don't know something group. I don't know. I've not. Oh, okay. I don't know that group and whatever it is. But let me tell you one of the things I've been warning the Southwest about. Don't try to face this enemy with lack of understanding. You will be like the person who has HIV and is fixating on, and tuberculosis and forgetting the HIV. When I'm saying to us again that it is only the church that understands the Hydra, the dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and a tail, that can easily understand that this is a satanic ensemble, but it's a practical ensemble. We have the understanding of it. We know that that tail is what Boko Haram, all this, with one tail, it drew out 1/3 of the stars in heaven. Not so? With violence. Now, the same way when I remember that when we first landed in Plateau State and we told them you have a global problem with a local face, come and see argument. We've always defeated them in battle. The Sedikin Yak in 1740 something, blah, blah, blah. I was just looking, I said, do you know how much life has changed? Do you realize the global reach of these people? Now, we said to you that what is working right now is opportunistic. What is the meaning of opportunistic? If it knows that there's a quarrel between the two of you, it will use that quarrel as a ground to move its own agenda forward. Now, without detecting this problem, you want to fixate on your quarrel. It will finish you. Now, let me give you a practical example right now, because when I was talking about restructuring, I want to tell you the difference between restructuring and reprogramming. In 1958, when Obafemi Awolowo came back from the Constitutional Conference in London, he said he had a strong sense of foreboding that something was terrible was going to happen. He said that it was going to happen, it was certain. When it would happen, he said he did not know. But he said he felt so hopeless initially, but then later on he decided that, look, let's try and do something about it. And you saw the 10 golden years of Western region when Awolowo began to try and neutralize, work against what had been packaged. In the year 1980, he launched a book. Professor C.O. Taiwo launched a book. Obafemi Awolowo went there and he made a comment after reading the book that the gap of education between Northern and Nigeria, which in 1905 stood at 50 years, had increased to 75 years by 1980. And he said, except something drastic is done, the gap will increase to 100 years by 1990. And Awolowo said, should we allow that gap in education, just education alone, no, I'm not even talking about the rest of the Hydra now. Will we allow that gap to increase to 100 years gap by 1990s? He said the result will be too gruesome to discuss in a quasi-academical gathering like the one that he was addressing. Now, what am I trying to say? Without any letter coming from any MacBan or anything, I will say we didn't listen to what Awolowo said in 1980. That based on what is on ground already, we are headed for what? Disaster. Did we handle any of those things? The same Awolowo said, it is undoubtable that the British created Nigeria. And that the nation that they created, they handed to us whole on a platter at independence. But they said what they gave to us had within it the forces of its own disintegration. And Awolowo now mentioned 4 things that had to be done to neutralize those forces of disintegration, to give the people a national vision, and certain steps he mentioned. Now, my question I'm asking you is this. If Awolowo, who was not even around when this new one landed, had said that the old problems on their own alone would destroy Nigeria, how many or how much leadership attended to anything that Obafemi Awolowo mentioned and pointed that Nigeria would disintegrate if we did not handle these issues? So my question now is this. Nigeria is the hope of Africa. We are not meant to be a stupid people. The major amount of bloodshed, we started shouting that this problem is going to start from 1999, 1998, 1999. The major amount of bloodshed that happened in this country could have been prevented if the church reared and stood to its height. We would have been the first to raise these alarms while it was still yet far away. But what did Jesus say about your neighbor? When they were harassing your neighbor, they were doing things, you turned your ear. When the problem now came to you, you now panic. You are now shouting. You are now making noise. Now, based on strategy, while I appreciate the man's alarm and what he has blown, but I still realize again that what I'm trying to point out to you here is this. He has not diagnosed with accuracy again what the root cause of the problem is. So, I have been attending some of the meetings. The Igbos now are reacting and said everybody's against us. The Yorubas are saying it's not their fault. It's not only Fulani now. Are we not the ones who allow Igbos to come and buy land? Can we buy land in Enugu? There's one joke they even talk about. Can you listen? There's one local joke that they used to capture it properly about Adie Lamidi. The Lamidi took a chicken belonging to Chuku in Ibadan and devoured the chicken. Chuku took him to court in Ibadan. And when the judge saw that the case was being established that Lamidi stole Chuku's chicken and ate it, the judge said, impossible. 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 That means Lamidi was just playing with you. Impossible. Oh, Nebinoni. You won't be annoyed. Impossible. And he looked at the other person and said, say Lamidi was someone do Ibadan. Will Lamidi go to jail in Ibadan because of the chicken of Chuku? Say Sukule Sewalengu Rudi Lamidi. Now, do you see the sentiment coming out now? Now, these are the things that Allah said were not attended. We were programmed to hate ourselves. We were programmed to fight ourselves. A worse enemy has now landed who has studied all of us. Okay, after he has finished raising this alarm now, which solutions did you pick out? Which strategies did we pick out? Which understanding of the root cause of the problems could we pick out? Which referendum? Now, let me tell you the truth now, because I heard what he was saying.